Welcome back and welcome to the start of week 4. Earlier this week, I was preparing for the holiday here in the US, the 4th of July, and I started to think about all the things that I needed to get done this week. The classes that I was teaching, checking in on the forums here, doing this video. There's a workshop that I was working on. There's family and friends that I needed to engage in one way or another. And as those things started to rush through my mind, I became a little bit anxious. How was I going to get to the holiday, enjoy the holiday with all of these things that I had to do? And so I did what I usually do under those circumstances. I pulled out my trusty black book that I walk around with, and I wrote down an outline of the things that I needed to get done and started to slot them into particular times when I could accomplish them. And as I did that, as I created an organization and a plan, I started to feel more relaxed. It seemed doable. And I was able to prioritize. Okay, a couple of these things don't need to happen before Thursday. They could wait till Friday or for Saturday. And some of these things need to be my top priority. Being able to write those down really helped me sort through what I need to do and be in a position to work efficiently. So why do I tell you that story? This week is all about how we organize our teaching, how we organize the individual lessons that we teach. And one of the ways that we do that is actually through storytelling. So I wanted to start with a little bit of a story to model that. But we'll also talk about some other organizational techniques that will help our students really digest what it is that we're trying to present to them. For this video, here are the things I'm going to concentrate on. Spend a few minutes reviewing Module 3, thinking about universal design for learning, thinking about how we build rapport, thinking about some of the things that were brought up on the forums. Second, we're going to be looking forward to what we're doing in Module 4, which is, as I said, about organizing our lessons. We'll be thinking about storytelling, and we'll be thinking about small teaching. And third, I want us to look more carefully at the assignments coming up. There is another video that you're doing, and there's a response to some sample videos that you're going to be addressing. So let's start with Module 3, what we were doing there, and what we really want to get out of that idea of building rapport. First is a fundamental question. Why build rapport with our students? Well, because research demonstrates that when students feel comfortable with us, that doesn't mean that it's a place that they aren't challenged. It doesn't mean that it's a place where they aren't stretched and made to think and engage material that they're not entirely comfortable engaging. But when they feel like they can trust us to be guides within that domain, and we build rapport, students tend to do better. And that's our end goal, is to help our students achieve that mastery. So we want to build that rapport. And one of the things that we talked about is the universal design for learning. Thinking about how to use multiple means of presenting material, multiple means of having them demonstrate their mastery and competence in it, all in an effort to help all of us move forward in our mastery and understanding of the material. One of the things that was brought up in the forums is this question of how far do we go? Of course, using different methods, trying to appeal to different senses, trying to appeal to different modes of learning takes more time than giving a lecture, for instance. And some of us don't have a lot of time. Likewise, as our classes get larger and larger, we can't individualize our approach for each and every student, it becomes practically impossible. So what we are looking for, and we're treating that idea of the universal design for learning as an ideal, something we're striving towards within these practical constraints. We are in particular looking for things that, while they may be designed to help a particular student or group of students, in fact help most of us. For instance, some of you talked about, especially in the online environment, video taping your online presentations. That can be really useful to someone who is working in a second language and has a chance to stop the video and slow down to make sure that they understand things. But that same technique helps someone who realizes when they're doing an assignment, oh, I maybe didn't understand that concept as well as I thought I did. Let me go back and watch that part of the discussion again. Or maybe it's a student who it just takes 2 or 3 iterations before something really settles in, and they have a chance to do that. So the one technique, and we're really looking for these kinds of techniques, actually accommodate a number of different needs that students might have. And that repertoire of approaches is really what we're trying to build. Besides the ideas of the universal design for learning, we were thinking about other ways of building rapport. Some of you had great ideas for what you do the first day, or how you deal with problems in the classrooms. Some of you have dealt with some really significant behavioral issues, and I'm grateful for you sharing those with us, and for those of you who were brainstorming how we deal with some of those hot moments. Thankfully, a lot of us have not had that extreme version of hot moments, but I really appreciate the collaboration on how to deal with all of those issues, because those hot moments are places where that rapport that we're building can be reinforced or be lost to some degree. That was really the focus of Module 3, and now we're turning to Module 4. Module 4, as I said, is about how we organize our teaching. And this is the first time that we're going to talk about backwards design. It's not the last time. We're going to come back to it over and over again in the weeks to come. But the basic principle of backwards design is that we need to know where we're headed. What's the learning outcome that we want to achieve at the end of the course, at the end of the lesson today, at the end of a unit or module? And once we've decided on that learning outcome, what's the evidence that we are going to have and use to indicate whether or not students have reached the level of competence of mastery that we want them to achieve? And then once we have those two things on the table, we can think about how do we design our lessons, how do we design the activities that we do to produce an environment in which they can demonstrate their mastery and achieve those learning goals. So it's called backwards design because we start with the end goal and move backwards from there. How do we understand where the end goal has been met, and what do we do to achieve that end goal? So if that's a way of aligning our activities with our learning outcomes, and it's a way of thinking through what sort of activities and what sort of lessons we should be teaching, we also then want to think about how we organize our teaching. And we've already seen a couple of examples. We've thought about using induction, we've thought about using deduction in Module 1. But this time around, we want to think about 2 significant organizational models. The first we're going to call small teaching. And small teaching is to break up a lesson, more or less into 4 parts. What do we do to prepare students, even before or in the moments that they are entering the classroom? The second part of small design is then to think about those introductory moments. How do we establish for the readers, how do we hook them, make them interested? And then how do we establish for them what we're going to do during a class setting and what they should expect to achieve by the end of it? Then we have the body. This is the bulk of our lesson. And that's made up of that set of activities or lectures or other teaching moments that we think will get students from where they are at the beginning of the lesson to that learning goal that we set for the day. Finally, we want to think about what comes at the end, conclusions. Those concluding moments can be so important in terms of reinforcing and refocusing our students' attention on the particular things that we want them to glean. So we want to think about what we do at the very end, whether it's giving them a chance to write, maybe to ask some questions, but what do we do in the final moments of a lesson to really bring the pieces together and help them understand and remember what it is that this session was all about. So that's small teaching. The other thing that we're going to think about is storytelling. And this is a broader version of what we talked about with analogies. But most of us respond really well to stories. We remember stories in a way that bare facts often are much harder for us to retain. Those stories have a structure, they have cognitive connections for us, sensory connections often, emotional connections sometimes, that help us to remember. So can we take advantage of that? Can we create a story structure for our lessons, or can we use stories within our lessons? I do want to turn now to the assignments, but there are two major assignments. The first of them is that you're going to be watching a sample micro-teach and analyzing, thinking about what's working in that micro-teach, what you would emulate in your own teaching, and also what you think isn't working, what you would want to avoid in your own teaching. You have two options. So as near as you can, choose the one that best fits your disciplinary direction. I know for some of you, there won't be one that really fits well, so you have the option to choose either one. But you're going to then be doing a quick write-up of your analysis of that micro-teach in preparation for your own micro-teach. Yes, you're going to be videotaping yourself again. This time, you're not simply introducing the course, you're not trying to build rapport, though that might be some elements of the early going, but this time you are teaching material. 10-minute, short teaching experience in which you're trying out, based on what you saw with the sample micro-teaches and your analysis of it, based on your experience, based on what you're reading in the notes for the unit, you're going to try out some of these techniques and present material. Along with that, as with last week, you're also doing a quick write-up of your self-analysis of what you did in that micro-teach. Everything this time around is due next Tuesday. So the scheduling's a little easier here. As with our micro-teach last week, don't worry if you don't have an actual class to teach to. Family, friends will do, or if you don't have that, teaching to an empty room, but trying out these structures will give you a chance to see how you would look to potential students. And for me, this is where things start to get even more exciting, because we're starting to then put into practice a lot of the things that we've been talking about, and put it in practice to actually advance in a real or at least mock way our students' learning, our students' mastery, or their understanding. So I look forward to engaging you on the forums, as always, and I hope you really dig in and enjoy teaching a lesson. See you next week.